It's the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
It's about to be. Oh, look at that. You want to take it. You want to do the intro? Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry. I'm just already interrupting and causing mayhem on your podcast. I'm sorry. Here I am just hijacking the airwaves. But that's a nice video, Ben. That's a very nice video.
That's a nice video. Shout out to Doug Branson and the good people at the Locked On Podcast Network for putting that together, making us look professional. But you say you're hijacking it. It's mayhem already. That's the point of today's episode. It's almost a freaking weekend. It's crazy. It's wild. We set you into the weekend here on Locked On Big Ten with some of the crazier things we think might potentially have a chance of happening in the 2021 Big Ten football season. So hello, everybody, and welcome to the Locked On Big Ten podcast, a part of the Locked On Podcast Network. I'm your host, Ben Stevens. It is Friday, June 11th. The other voice and face you are seeing if you are watching on YouTube is Matt Sheehan, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Spartans. Matt, before I officially welcome you on, we have to mention that today's episode is brought to you by Stat Hero. Stat Hero, the first ever daily fantasy sports book that gives the player the advantage. Go to stathero.com/lockedon. That's LOCKEDON for 300% back, 300% back on your first play. I read that and I was like, that has to be a misprint. It's not. The good folks at Stat Hero, also wild. We're getting wild this weekend. Matt Sheehan, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Spartans. Welcome back to the Locked On Big Ten podcast.
Dude. Thrilled to be here. It's been too long, Ben. I missed you, Ben. I missed you.
I missed you too.
Man.
The last I had seen of Matt Sheehan was the NCAA tournament and some of the best reaction videos you will ever see in your entire life. Slugging Miller Lights, having a great time with it. And I don't think I've seen you since then. I don't think I've had you on the podcast since then, which is just far too long. But you can already tell the first 2.5 minutes of this show have been electric. They have been crazy. From the jump, after the video and music played, we were ready to go. So, Matt, it's a pleasure to have you back here.
Dude, it's great to be back on. Yeah, I can confirm I have still been drinking the Miller Lite. Although they've been like happy, like some of those reaction videos, it was like the sad beer every once in a while. But no, it's hey, we're just rolling smooth into the summer in these back to precedented times pretty soon, Ben. So man,
back to precedented. I like what you're doing there. I like also when you share out what beers you're drinking on a given day heading into the weekend. I see we've been getting some bells up there. We're getting ready in the state of Michigan for a beautiful summer. And as we're talking about beer, we're talking about alcohol. We'll get into some of our crazier predictions that might actually happen for the 2021 football season on the gridiron. But big news in the Big Ten on Thursday. Iowa will sell beer at Kinnick Stadium this upcoming football season. So I ask you, Matt Sheehan, Michigan State still is not selling beer throughout games at Spartan games so far. When do you think that's a possibility?
God, hopefully soon. I mean, I just don't see why not. Like, it's no mystery that a lot of teams lost revenue last year without having ticket sales and fans. Like, let's get this back one $12 beer at a time. I mean, that's all we need. I don't need anything fancy. I'm not looking to get absolutely whammered at these games. I'm just really what I'm trying to do is avoid the third quarter hangover. I mean, that's it. Everyone just, lugs as many fireball shots and beers as they possibly can before heading into Spartan Stadium. And then, third quarter creeps up. MSU's down 10-13, and oh boy, is that headache starting to creep in. So I would do anything to pay. I would pay upwards of $20 for like a lukewarm beer in the third quarter at Spartan Stadium. Like, why not just go for it? Who's it hurting? But I guess could get a little out of hand in some cases. But I won't. I'm a proper citizen of.
Yes, you are.
Whatever.
East Lansing, the greater Michigan area. But I would say, in fact, you could make the argument that people tailgate so hard before football games across the Big Ten because there is no beer sales during the game. So they have to jam-pack everything in binge drink, which is one of the biggest taboos we have when it comes to alcohol. So why not allow fans to go into the stadium at a more timely fashion, enjoy a nice beer, and then you taper it out throughout the game. So maybe there's something to that. But until that day happens, Matt Sheehan, you will be outside Spartan Stadium slugging fireball. And we're getting ready for 2021 in such a fashion.
Yeah, and also, if you sell beer in the stadium too, I'm not saying I do it, but just the stress of having to put little shooters of Bailey's in your socks and walk through without security catching you, like I don't need more stress on a game day, Ben. Like it's hard enough walking into the stadium about to watch my Michigan State Spartans do whatever they do, and more times than not lately, that's not score any touchdowns. Like that's stressful enough. I don't need another thing in my list to worry about.
Are you seeing that, Spartan Athletics? Think about the fans. Think about the fans that have to cheat the system.
Yeah.
Think about them before you are deciding whether or not we can sell beer or not. I also have to mention, because it's the first time we've had you back on the show in a while, you have a new set. And Mel Tucker behind you, if you're watching this on YouTube, if you're listening, Matt has a picture of Mel Tucker over a Spartan helmet, just staring into the soul of whoever is looking back, trying to match the eye gaze of Mel Tucker. I'm scared to do so. So I'm glad I just get to stare at the flow that Matt Sheehan has going here in the month of June.
Appreciate that. Yeah, this is I was always a buzz cut kind of guy in quarantine. I've had like 2 haircuts, and who knows what's going on with the hair every single day when I wake up. But yeah, thank you for noticing the canvas. Actually, Ben, I got one more thing for you right here, and this is terrible.
My God.
This is terrible if you're listening to the pod.
Just listen to the pod, but here we go.
Antoine Simmons game-used glove from the Michigan game, the one he tipped that pass in the end zone with right there. So, that's
remind me, it's been a while. That score of that game was
my memory's a little fuzzy. Was it close? No, it couldn't have been close. MSU was 3.5 touchdown underdogs going into that game. But that's right. It was 27-24. Ben, that's right. That's what we're talking about. So.
Boom.
Who can forget?
If you ever forget, just go look at Matt Sheehan's Twitter handle, I think. I don't know if it's still 27-24.
Yeah, it is.
But
it's still in the file.
Yeah, somewhere in there, you'll definitely find the outcome of the 2020 Michigan State game. So, Matt, let's look forward to 2021. It's what we've been doing pretty much all month long here on Locked On Big Ten, as we try to provide some hope and optimism during these down months in the offseason as we get ready for the 2021 Big Ten football season. So today's focus is one of the crazier, more outlandish things we think might actually have a slim chance of happening. Do you have a bigger topic that comes to mind when I pose that type of question?
Oh man, I don't know why, Ben. I keep falling in love with Iowa this year for some reason. I can't,
because of the beer sales.
It's the beer sales. It's just that they're kind of like the cicadas. Is like they'll take like years off, or like they're okay, and then they have a spike, and now they're really good this year. I feel like they're on the precipice of like another spike up. They're going to go to the Big Ten championship game, and I don't think they're going to win, but Ohio State has to lose one of these games, right? They can't win every time they go to Lucas Oil Stadium, right? Just law of averages. You're going to accidentally lose one of these things eventually. So I don't know. Iowa's a sneaky team this year. I just like Iowa going to Lucas Oil this year. Am I crazy for that, or is I don't even know if that's a hot, lukewarm, or just a cold take. I mean,
I don't think it's crazy, because one of the things I think we will see this year in the Big Ten football season is a return to normalcy in a way where you will have the teams that we expect to be at the top of each division on a year in, year out basis make their way back up there. Will Penn State and Michigan in the East be up there? I'm not entirely sure, but I do expect Iowa and Wisconsin to be contending for that Big Ten West title. There's a game Halloween weekend, Matt Sheehan, between those two teams at Camp Randall that I think will decide the winner of the Big Ten West division this year. I think the crazier thing that you could have said there is if Iowa goes to Lucas Oil and knocks off Ohio State, but that's almost lunacy at a time.
I almost went there. Went there, but I have to check myself. Yeah, almost.
It's so hard to predict that to be the case, because you are literally predicting history. And in all things we have seen, even 2019 was it, when Wisconsin was up 28-7 in that first half of the Big Ten championship game, and then Ohio State still found a way to rally and win that. So it's so hard to predict somebody to knock off Ohio State. But I think Iowa getting back to the top of the Big Ten West, not the craziest thing, but I have something that's kind of crazy, if you will. I think in the Big Ten East, I'll get your thoughts on something that I have been called crazy for beforehand, but I think in the Big Ten East, Maryland has a possibility of winning 8 football games this year in 2021. I think Maryland has a very talented roster, mainly on offense. You have Talia Tagovailoa, who looked really good at times last year, bad at other times, but really good at times, with a very solid supporting cast of skill players. When you look at Rakeem Jarrett, you look at Dante Demas Jr., you look at Tayon Fleet Davis, who probably has the best name for a running back you will ever see. Fleet of foot running back? Come on, it just all goes so well together that I think Maryland has a lot offensively They could win 8 games this year in the Big Ten East. I looked at their schedule. Here's how I see things breaking down in a possibility for these Terrapins under Mike Locksley in his 3rd year on campus. They start off with West Virginia in the season opener. West Virginia had a pretty bad year in the Big 12. I think they could win that game. They then play Howard. I think they could also get Illinois, Kent State, and then their Big Ten opponents is where it gets a little bit shakier. I think they could knock off Minnesota, although it's on the road in the Twin Cities. Michigan State, Maryland, I actually think will be a very competitive game this year. They could potentially knock off Michigan. I think they have that game at home. And then at Rutgers to finish off the year. I think their loss has come against Ohio State, Iowa, Indiana, and Penn State. But that could be an 8-4 record for the Maryland Terrapins in 2020. Is that wild? Is that crazy, Matt Sheehan?
I mean, no one had a crazier season than them last year, right? I mean, not only did they only play 5 games, but okay, you start the season getting absolutely waxed by Northwestern, which is okay, respectable. Northwestern was a fine team last year. Sure, of course. And then 45-44 win over Minnesota. Then you beat Penn State. You'll lose to Indiana, and then you lose to Rutgers for your cap off to the season. Like, I don't know what to expect. I could see them going 2-10 as easily as I could see them going 10-2 this year. Like, just like you said, roster is littered with talent. That's not going to be the issue. It's just, I don't think I'll ever bet on Maryland this year because I never know what Terrapin team is going to show up. So 8-4, I don't hate that because I could realistically see them going anywhere between 4-8 and 8-4. Like I'm not going to touch the Terps all year because I don't know, man. I can't do it.
They have a very talented roster. They truly do. Mainly on offense. The defense is okay. Bottom 5 in both scoring and total defense this past year in 2020. They do have a very talented young safety by the name of Nick Cross, who I think is now a junior, or maybe it was a sophomore. Yeah, I think he's a junior now, but one of the best in the Big Ten Conference. I don't know exactly what to expect out of the defense overall, but the offense has so many weapons, and the consistency of having Talia Tagovailoa back now for a 2nd year on campus in College Park, that could be a step. And this Maryland team could be a team that is looking to put up 30, 35 points every single game. So I think there's a chance they go 8-4. Is it crazy? That's the point of the show. Is it crazy enough that it might just happen? That's what we're doing on Locked On Big Ten. Yeah. So here's my second crazy thing that has to do with the Big Ten East. And you are the perfect person to answer this question. I've put it out on Twitter. I put it out on a Tuesday afternoon in the middle of May. It is one of my spicier, potentially wildest takes for the 2021 Big Ten football season. I think your Michigan State Spartans will win 7 games. Scale 1 to 10, how crazy is that?
If you ask Vegas, that's very crazy because I think their over-under for wins this year is it's either 4 or 4.5, wherever you look. So 7 in the eyes of Vegas is absolute banana land. But if you're asking a slappy homer like me, Ben, that ain't crazy enough. I can see 9 wins out of this team coming up. No, I'm kidding. I'm not going to go on the record for that. But 7 wins, no, I think is squarely in the realm of possibility. Like, no one has cut up their roster and used the transfer portal as well as this guy over my shoulder right now, Mel Tucker. Like, he saw that roster. He got a full look at it. I forgot how many games they played last year. I'm trying to block last year's season out of my memory, except for the 2 games they won. He got a good look, though, at that roster, and oh my, that is not Big Ten caliber. You see where all these kids are going? Every kid, but like maybe 3 or 4 transfer to a group of 5 school. Like, these weren't even Power 5 transfers that were leaving the program. And he's pulling kids in, too. I mean, are they all studs? No, not every one. I mean, you get Ronald Williams from Alabama, who's a backup cornerback down there. You get Kimbrough from Florida, who's a backup cornerback. You know what's good, though, is that SEC backups, especially on those schools, are probably better than what you had starting out. So he's been great at adding guys on. I'm thrilled for the linebacker situation now that Quavaris Crouch has joined the mix. I just think 7's doable, man. I do. It's a massive 1-year overhaul they did. And, yeah, because, boy, sorry, I'm having PTSD to last year. I got, like, the 1,000-yard stare going right now. It's going to be a better roster. Like, college football players are going to be playing for Michigan State football this year, and that couldn't have been said.
And this take I formulated came from knowledgeable people like yourself and your co-host Will Hunter, and mainly that idea of the great guy. Let's put that on the record.
Great guy.
And the roster that was assembled by Mel Tucker because of his ability to recruit the transfer portal. I think Mel Tucker in the Big Ten Conference, as it stands right now, has one of the most forward-thinking approaches as it comes to this ever-evolving landscape of college sports and the one-time transfer rule, where he's saying, listen, you don't like our program, you don't think you have a fit here, best of luck to you. There's the transfer portal. He's a realist when it comes to it. And on the other hand, he is developing a portion of his recruiting department to specifically recruit the transfer portal. Now, there are people and there are coaches that are like, oh, man, Jolly Gee, that's a tough thing we got to do now, recruiting the transfer portal. How are we going to get kids to stay? All that crap. No. Adapt to the times. Mel Tucker is doing that very well. If it's a business-like approach, he is treating it as such. So I think the roster that has now been assembled, as Will told me, as you alluded to there, has so much more talent this year than it did at all last year. And then, of course, you take into the factor that, hey, Mel Tucker doesn't have to walk around with a name tag this year into fall camp like he did last year when he had just met people based on coming off of the pandemic. So I think this could potentially be a 7-win team in the Big Ten East. I really do. That's the staple that Michigan State tries to uphold each and every year in that division. And I think guys like Anthony Russo, who have big-time college football playing experience. I think Kenneth Walker III, who was one of the more exciting running backs to leave the ACC and now come to the Big Ten. This team could do it. And not to mention guys like Jalen Reed that were incredible last year, all the pieces in place. I think this could be a 7-win Michigan State team.
And it's not a bad start to the season either. I'm not saying that these are all chip shot guaranteed wins, but when you play in the Big Ten East, I mean, it's tough to get a schedule that starts off as good as, at Northwestern, Youngstown State at home, at Miami, that'll be tough. And then Nebraska at home, West Kentucky at home, Rutgers on the road, Indiana on the road, and then a bye week. Like that's not the worst murderer's row of 7 games to start the season there, right? I mean, I could see 5-2 start, 6-1 start if we're feeling frisky today, and I am. It's going to bode well, but at the same time, the one thing that sits in the back of my head is that the roster is improved from last year. However, last year, some of these games, these weren't toss-ups that MSU barely lost. They got waxed in a few of these games. I think in the Iowa game, I think in the Indiana game, where it was very clear that we would have to fight to even get a first down that game. The Ohio State game, they could have 150 points on us if they really wanted to. So it's improved, but hasn't really improved enough. We'll see.
That's the realist approach. But on this crazy show that we had to end out the week here on Locked On Big Ten.
10 wins for the Spartans. Let's go, baby. 10 wins. Let's go. Year 6 bowl. Here we come.
That's what we're saying now for Indiana, too. It's not 9-win Indiana anymore. It's 11-win Indiana. And that might be potentially in the cards as well. I will say one final thing in our crazy potential things to happen. I'm just going to say this right now. Here it is. What time is it? It is 10:51 a.m. on the Pacific time zone as we are recording this on Thursday, June 10th for a Friday, June 11th show in 2021. I'm just going to say it. Nebraska might win the Big Ten West. Boom.
Talk about it. Let's go, baby. Love that.
There we go.
That's what I'm talking about.
A lot of talent on that roster. If Scott can figure it out, they win some games. I'm just saying that's the Nebraska homer in me. I lived in Omaha for 2 years. We all know that. Hate it. Matt Sheehan, any other crazy things that you want to get off your chest right now as we round out this episode?
I want to whisper this because I do like their football program, and I don't mean ill will against them, but Jeff Brum hot seat, perhaps? That Rondell Moore, Purdue, Ohio State game, that ain't getting any younger. That's getting further in the review mirror. That was a fun game. It was awesome. I had a great time watching it.
Yeah.
I don't know how much longer you can hold on to that game, though, Jeff. Got to start seeing some production here with that big old contract you signed. So,
yeah. It will become what is starting now in June as a whisper. Could become very loud voices by the time we get to October or November if things are not going well for Purdue. I think Jeff Brom is a great coach. I think he is a wonderful offensive mind. He has brought talent to West Lafayette that we haven't seen at the skill position in quite some time for those Purdue Boilermakers. His hiring process of who he brings in on his defensive coaching staff, that's been the hit and misses. 3 defensive coordinators now entering 2021 in the past 3 seasons. That might be the downfall, but also goes to show you that being a coach, being a good head coach as what's the word I'm looking for? It starts with a D. Not deflect. Deliberate? No, you know what I'm saying?
I do, and I can't think of the word either. Yeah,
it's like people are bad at not like facilitating. God damn it. It will come to me as soon as we sign off.
Facilitating is a good word for it.
Delegation.
Delegate.
There we go.
Look at us, we're thriving.
With Matt Sheehan and Ben Stevens. But it also goes to show that being a good head coach of a big football program, you have to be good at delegating and you have to be good at making smart choices. I don't know if Purdue and Jeff Brom at least during his time at West Lafayette, has made good choices when it comes to picking that defensive staff. Bob Diaco? Just every time I think about it. But I agree with you. Those whispers now in June might become very loud yells by the time we get to November. If things do not go Purdue's way this year, but they have enough talent on that roster. They do. And even on the defensive side of the ball to be successful this year. We'll just have to see if it happens.
Yeah. Sorry. That was kind of a lukewarm take. I should have came out hotter. I'm sorry. You know what?
You
Purdue,
had some
10 wins. 10 wins for Purdue as well this year. I'm giving everyone 10 wins this year. That's right, baby.
Purdue and Nebraska are making the college football playoff. Both of them coming out of the Big Ten West. They're going to do it.
Yeah, they're going to tie. They're going to make an all-star team to play Ohio State and Indy. It's going to be awesome. Cannot wait.
I don't even. Do you think? Let's talk about that. Do you think an all-star team of Purdue and Nebraska could beat Ohio State?
No, not at all. I
don't think so either.
15.5-point spread for that one. No way.
All right. Here's another question, and this might be the topic for next week's show. Do you think an all-star team of the 13 other football programs in the Big Ten Conference could beat Ohio State? Or like, what's the spread for that game?
Now I do think it is. Now I do think that you can win. I think it's going to be a 4.5-point spread going to the favorite all-star team, I guess. Yeah. I think could a Big Ten West all-star team, I think that would be very close and exciting. I don't know who coaches of that bunch. Jeff Brom. Why not? Jeff Brom. This is how you keep your job. You got to beat Ohio State with an all-star team from the Big Ten West. Go get him, champ. Good luck. And if the Big Ten West all-star team wins, I was going to say each individual team gets to play a quarter in Pasadena, but that doesn't work at all. There's only 4 quarters. We'll workshop this. We've got a lot of summer left to work this out. Right? Yeah.
See, this is what happens. Coming next week on Locked On Big Ten, could a Big Ten West All-Star team beat Ohio State? Thank you, Matt Sheehan. Everybody, Matt Sheehan, one of the co-hosts of Locked On Spartans. A wonderful, wild, wacky, crazy episode to round out the week here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend, Matt.
I hope you have a better one, Ben. How about that?
It's so kind of you, man. That really meant the world to me.